And what's going on, guys? Kale here, coming at you with another video. This one is going to be an update to kind of, I guess, my earlier Mutant Doom 2 video. Just, I think a lot has changed since that video was initially made. Some strategies have changed, ISO recommendations have changed, etc. So I was originally actually planning to film this video on Kale. However, Kale's first section in the Doom 2 raid is actually Mutant Mystic, and with today being a push day, I didn't really want to hold off on the energy, and so I just kind of blew through that, and it was relatively late at night, so didn't want to go filming that. But anyway, so first and foremost, again, pardon the decorum. You know, still very much under house renovations. So the bedroom is pretty much our safe haven, and basically the only place to do this kind of stuff. So what I wanted to do first is take a look at the Astonishing Axemen, or Astonishing X-Men, Axemen, whatever you want to call them. Pretty much the only, I would say, viable Doom 2 raid team. Now, Mnii's Axemen are not quite where I'd like them yet, but Mutant is the last section for Mnii, so literally the last 3 nodes are Mutant. So it hasn't been as top of a priority. You know, currently I am working, just kind of finishing up my Web Warriors, and then kind of my plan, just I guess maybe sidetrack a little bit, but the rest of the plan is to then basically take my Doom 2 raid characters to level 85. You know, if you have the resources, it definitely gives these characters a very large stat boost, makes them a lot more viable. In my opinion, it's gold well spent, as these are characters you're going to be using every day, and, you know, the investment you get back from that, I think, is well worth it. So, you know, as I said, I'm finishing up the Web Warriors. Once I do finish them, you know, I'll be taking my skill team to 85, then Tech, Mystic, and then Mutant. So, you know, my Axemen are my lowest priority on Mnii, and that's just because they are the last section for my particular raid lane. But what I did want to talk about, you know, there are kind of, I would say, 3 essential characters and, you know, 2 very important characters, but maybe not as essential as far as the gear goes. And so the 3 essentials that you really want kind of big are going to be Beast, Jubilee, and Bishop. The bigger these characters are, really the better off you're going to be. And then the other 2 that don't need as much gear is going to be Iceman and Kitty Pryde. Now, I want to talk about the ISO setup with these characters, and actually, I need to change Iceman over here because I do not have him up as the correct ISO. But they should all be skirmishers, and let's see if we do have enough. Let's see if we have enough blue ISO to take him to. Okay, so we don't currently. So we'll have to leave him as a raider for the time being, but I will be taking him to Skirmisher. And just to, I guess, show that, you know, I'm not recommending something and not practicing what I preach, essentially, let's switch over to Kale real fast. And, you know, if you look at Kale is going to have the proper ISO setup on them. So, you know, they're all skirmishers, with the exception of Bishop. And I'll talk about why that is the recommended ISO setup. While it might not necessarily be super important for Doom 2.0, you know, going further, it definitely is important for Doom 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. But the way the Axemen function, there's kind of 2 primary mechanics, I would say. So the first mechanic is going to be from Jubilee's passive, and on the death of an enemy, she's going to fill all of her fellow Axemen speed bars by 25%. So the first two nodes in particular have a mechanic that actually really helps this, and even the third node, to an extent, also has a mechanic that works with this. So in the first node, you have Greg. You can kind of farm Greg for speed, and kind of make your team go faster and get the debuffs out that you need. Second node, very similar thing with multiple man. You can kind of farm the multiple man dupes, and again, you get the speed and the debuffs out that you need, which is going to kind of bring us into the second mechanic of how this team really works and why Skirmisher is actually important. So the X-Men are all going to assist each other. It's totally random who's going to assist, but everyone has a chance to. Now, a couple things with Skirmisher, which he is not the one to be showing this on, but, you know, on Skirmisher, if you look here, they're going to get an additional 10% damage on their assists, and this is just a little bit far over, so if we move it over like that, so you get 10% on the assist. So having Skirmisher on all of the Axemen minus Bishop is going to give you a little boost in damage, but that's not the primary reason behind this. The main reason is going to be this one right here, and it only kind of really comes into play at ISO 3, but they get an additional 50% focus, and that's on top of the 50% focus they're already getting from the green ISO. So a couple things are happening. If the target is already vulnerable, they are clearing 2 positive effects, which is important. A lot of the Doom 2 characters have offense up, defense up, etc., and you don't want that on. But on top of it, they're going to get 50% focus. And then when you add in Blue 3, they're going to get an additional 50% focus. So we're talking 100% additional focus. And with the characters being built like that, it's pretty much close to impossible for an enemy to resist a debuff. It does still happen, you know, especially depending on your red stars and gold stars. It is still possible, but it's less likely. Why that's important. So if we look at Iceman over here, anytime an enemy has slow, the important thing, you know, the barrier, that's cool, you know, he's going to do additional damage, but the important part is he is going to lower the armor by all of the enemies by 20% that do have slow, and then in raids, he's also going to lower their damage by 30%. Now, again, this is important because in Doom 2.1 and higher, the enemies are going to get inflated damage. They'll have a percentage bonus to their damage. So this certainly helps mitigate that and make it so your Axemen are able to survive. But this even helps in Doom 2.0. So obviously, Iceman's ultimate is going to put slow on the field, and then when he assists with his basic, he's also going to put slow. So the more slow, the weaker your enemy's armor is going to be, as well as their damage is going to be much weaker. So that's important. Second one that you really want to be able to land her debuffs is going to be Kitty Pryde over here, and her passive doesn't really matter, but what you are looking at is you do want her to be able to land this ability block, or not this ability block, this disrupted. You know, this comes into play when you're worrying about tanks. Doesn't really apply to the first 2 nodes, but it does come into play with the third node. There is a Thanos. You don't want him taunting, so you can actually get rid of the enemy Doom. So there's that. The other one is her special over here, and you want to be able to apply this offense down for 2 turns. Offense down is going to reduce the enemy's damage by 50%, and then you also have Iceman's ability where it's reducing it by an additional 30%. So you can really kind of neuter the enemy's damage with those 2, but only if they're landing. Other thing too is you'll be flipping taunt into defense down, and if the enemy did have taunt, she's going to get speed up, so that's pretty cool. Second thing on her over here, and this is really only going to apply if you have this T forward. This isn't necessarily a must-have T forward, it's definitely a luxury, but if you do have this T forward, you know, she'll be clearing 2 positive effects from the primary target on her assists, so if she is a skirmisher, this is going to help her clear those. The other very two important ones, and why Skirmisher works on them, we'll talk about Jubilee. It's pretty straightforward. You're pretty much looking at her blind over here, and, you know, in Raid, she always has a chance to blind. She'll always apply blind. This still can be resisted, though. So you do have a resistance check, and Skirmisher kind of helps her overcome that. If you want even a higher percent, if you're really running into situations where you're being resisted a lot more, you might want to consider T4ing this. It does increase the chance for the blind to land. But that's why she's kind of important as a Skirmisher. It really comes into play, especially with the first node where you have the two Silver Surfers. There's kind of a strategy that you want to implore to basically make it so the Surfers aren't doing their ult, because the ult can really kind of wreck the Axemen. So that's why Skirmisher is important on her. And last but not least, Beast over here. Very important. You know, there is a debate for him to be a healer. However, as frequently as he's going, and as frequently as he does have a special available to him, the healer ISO, while I guess it's, you know, it does help a little bit, I find a lot more use out of him being a Skirmisher and making sure that you're flipping positive effects. So, you know, as I mentioned, a lot of the Doom characters have offense up, deflect, etc. So when you're flipping those positive effects, you know, offense up flips to offense down, reduction, you know, 50%. Defense up flips to defense down, so reducing the enemy's armor. Deflect, if I'm not mistaken, flips into bleed. So the more you're flipping these positive effects, the better it is. And that's why I think I like him better as a Skirmisher. And again, he's also getting that boosted damage from the Skirmisher ISO class. T4s, you know, kind of go without saying. You know, we do obviously have an infographic about that. Axemen are a pretty older team, so I think a lot of people have already invested their T4s in them. So yeah, so enough of that. What I will also say too, like I mentioned, you know, gear-wise, especially if you've already completed Dark Dimension 4 and you are currently having trouble in the Mutant section, I would highly recommend bringing Jubilee, Beast, and Bishop to G15, and Iceman and Kitty Pryde can pretty much get through it at G14. I do still have the ability to take these 2 to 7 stars. It just hasn't been a top priority with me for gear. And I'll actually see, I really haven't run the Mutant section on Mnii in quite some time, so I'm actually kind of curious to see how Mnii does and see if that 7-star is really necessary. But enough of the setup, let's get into it. Currently, I am in the last 2 nodes of, or the first 2 nodes of Mutant. I obviously do not have the energy to get to the last node. We can talk about it a little bit, and, you know, probably what I'll end up doing is I'll do kind of a little cut, and I'll come back when my energy refreshes. But anyway, let's get into it. First node here. Now, I will say placement is semi-important. You know, obviously you want Beast taking the bulk of, or not Beast. You want Bishop taking the bulk of the damage. And because of that, you know, with him taking a chunk of the damage, you kind of don't want him next to Jubilee or Beast, because they kind of really make this team function. So kind of the idea is you want to kind of ping pong. So the goal, in a way, is to get Beast to heal as much as he can, and he's going to do that by, once an Axeman character drops down to 50%, he's going to trigger Jubilee's passive. She's going to give Beast energy and speed him up. So kind of having him by the 2 characters that have a little bit more survivability is definitely kind of the way to go. So again, like I mentioned, Iceman over here should be a Skirmisher. I don't currently have the blue ions to do that on Mnii. I definitely will be kind of doing that. you know, probably actually as soon as this raid is over and I do get the blue ions, because that is kind of critical, especially for push day, now that Mnii is getting to the mutant section. I definitely at least want the, you know, bare minimum where Iceman is at least a blue 1 skirmisher. But let's see how we do with him as a raider. Raider isn't terrible for Iceman, it's just not as good as skirmisher. So hopefully also we don't have any crashes, you know, that's obviously been an issue with raids. And in today in particular, there was kind of a, it was a short period, but maybe like 5 minutes where I couldn't log into the game. When I could, the screen would kind of freeze up and it would restart and all sorts of craziness. But, alright, so we're loading in. You'll notice here we have a Greg, and what you do want to also pay attention to is who has the assist, and the assist is going to be this one right here, and we'll talk about that. When Jubilee has the assist, that's when you're going to kind of want to target Surfer and make sure you land a blind on Surfer. You'll also notice that because there's only one bishop, one Jubilee. Jubilee is always going to assist this bishop, so a lot of the times on your first turn, your bishop will be blinded. You want to pay attention to that. If that does happen, you want to go ahead and use bishop special. It's unavoidable, so it doesn't matter if he's blinded, it will still land, and you'll get some damage out. Now, the other thing important too, like I mentioned, you want to get slows going, and also kind of farming this Greg. So by doing Iceman's ultimate over here, we get some slows on the field. So now pretty much everyone but Surfer has, you know, reduced, you know, offense. Their offense down, basically. We'll see over here, Bishop has the assist. So if we want to strip some positive effects, Surfer over here has his defense up. We want to get rid of that. So if by some chance it didn't strip by Kitty Pryde, we use Beast to strip his defense up. So he's now, you know, a little bit squishier. We did just lose Kitty Pryde, which is unfortunate. Let's see how we're doing. We might still be able to kind of go through this without Kitty. If something like that's happening, that is definitely one of those situations where, you know, I want to consider, you know, probably actually raising Kitty's star power, and that should help her. We're going to go in now with Bishop's ultimate. Again, we're going to be targeting close to the Greg, so we can kill the Greg, kill Bishop. We also killed Merc Lieutenant, so right there, we just got a bonus 75% speed, so that really helps us out. You'll notice here Surfer has offense up. We don't want that, and Beast has the assist, so we'll go in there. That flip to actually offense down now, which is much better than offense up. We'll get everyone kind of some buffs going, and now we are going to keep farming that Greg, and it looks like Bishop has the assist, so we'll just do the special here. We don't necessarily need the heal, but we wanted to kill the Greg, do a little bit more damage on Surfer. What you'll also notice, I forgot to mention, it is important when Jubilee goes for the first time that you do get the stun lock on Squirrel Girl over here. If you don't do the stun lock, she is going to cleanse all of the debuffs you kind of got working on the field, and obviously you don't want that. The more debuffs on the enemy, the better off you're going to do, and, you know, you're more likely to survive. Now that we've kind of gotten down more or less the first wave, we are going to kind of focus fire on Silver Surfer over here. We'll get him down, and then we'll kind of talk about the final wave, because the final wave will basically drop after I finish this, and we'll probably have to speed up just a hair. I obviously don't want to time out on this node, so I can actually do the second node for y'all, and yeah, so we'll go through. Basically right now all I'm doing is working down Surfer. I will still be going to kind of get the blind on him, just in case I'm not able to kill him before he does his ultimate. His ultimate, you know, you definitely want him blinded, that way he misses. The ultimate can really kind of tear through your team, and you obviously don't want that. So yeah, let's see. I'm probably, honestly, I'm probably going to time out looking at the way this fight is going, which is fine. You know, like I said, Mnii definitely has... you know, kind of a weaker Iceman, and you'll notice there, so that was a big misplay on my part. So what happened is Squirrel Girl over here actually cleansed Silver Surfer, which is why his ultimate landed. That's definitely not what you want happening. You know, so that was a misplay on my part. Even with that misplay, though, we are still in pretty good shape. Obviously not for a one-shot. We are going to have to two-tap this node, which is a little unfortunate. I think a lot of that might be from essentially me running my mouth and kind of talking. A lot of the times when I do this, you know, I'm not kind of pointing out where the assists are. I'm just kind of going into it. We probably could have one-tapped that if we weren't talking, but it's okay. We'll go in. I'll probably buy additional raid attack just to kind of show the second node, and obviously I will heal up Kitty Pryde over here. But this is also going to kind of go into kind of, I guess, raid strategy as well, where, you know, when you're looking at if you lose a character, you know, do you quit out of the match to res that one character, or do you keep going? And I think a lot of that is going to depend on which character you lose. So in this exact same situation, had I lost Bishop, Jubilee, or Beast, I would have closed right away and... not closed, I should say. I would have quit out of the match, and I would have then res the essential character and kind of gone through. With a character like Kitty Pryde or Iceman, they're not as essential, so it's not too bad if they die. Now, the only problem with coming into this node as a second tap is we basically lost a lot of the momentum we built up from, you know, basically all of the turn meteor we were kind of gaining. So that's a bit unfortunate. We should still be okay, though. So we noticed Jubilee has the assist. Hopefully she lands the blind, which she did. So now when Surfer goes, because he is getting ready to go, his ultimate is going to miss, and that's fine. You basically have 2 turns to get Surfer down before he becomes a problem. So his first turn, he's going to do his ultimate. If he's blinded, it does literally nothing. His second turn, he is going to do his special, which again, if he's blinded, it's not going to do anything. After that, he'll start using his basic, and that's kind of when he becomes a little bit more of a problem, where any debuffs you're putting on him, you've got the possibility that they're going to get thrown back on you. And really not the possibility, it's going to happen. So we want to stun him here, just in case the blind misses, which he resisted the stun. That's, again, really important why Iceman makes more sense as a skirmisher. The Silver Surfers, in particular, have really high resistance, and they're really kind of the... I mean, honestly, they're really the only thing you have to worry about on these nodes. If you can get past the Surfers, you're fine. And that's why having Skirmisher on the characters, you know, helps. Because basically you can kind of, you know, pretty much more or less get them down in 2 turns. And if they're either blinded or stunned, they're pretty much neutered, and they're not much of a problem. So, did that node, easy 2-tap. You know, and again, there's no shame in a 2-tap, especially when you're talking about, you know, the last 3 nodes of, you know, endgame content, essentially. Normally, I would not do a 100-core refresh, but I do want to show this node. This is another node that's a little bit on the trickier side, and, you know, I think some of it... You know, it's just really, I think, kind of about prioritizing, and there's a little bit of luck involved, but not entirely. So I'm going to kind of talk about how I go into this node. Again, if you can kind of survive the first wave, the second wave really is nothing. The second wave is when you actually get multiple man, and once that happens, it's a wrap. It becomes super easy. And the third wave in particular is, you know, it's only 2 enemies. So Things you have to watch out here, Colleen Wing and her bleeds can be pretty dangerous. The Dad Bros back here can be dangerous as well with their speed up mechanics. So if you get lucky, Jubilee will have an early assist, and that's kind of where the RNG comes into play. If Jubilee has the assist, like she does now, you want to target one of the Dad Bros and get a blind. If I'm remembering correctly, Shatterstar goes first. So I typically go for Shatterstar. That way he misses, and he does not give any crit chance to Longshot. Now, Longshot is going to get to go next, which is okay. We'll go in. I'm going to go and stun Squirrel Girl, kind of extend those debuffs, offense down and slow. We got the heal blocks, not a big deal. We'll get that cleared the next time Beast goes. The problem now, obviously, is Miss Marvel over here. She has our taunt up. Now, depending on where your team is, you can do one of two things. If your team is kind of debuffed or you've got a lot of damage on your team, the next time Beast goes, you can use his special to get some heals going. If your team isn't too bad, though, I would suggest using the basic to clear. So it kind of really just depends on where you are. Another thing that, you know, if this team is a little bit stronger, they probably would have been able to do is I actually would have been able to clear Miss Marvel, which would have given me a little bit more speed. And then typically what I would do is I would then actually ult on Emma so she isn't removing all those debuffs. But Mnii Iceman not as built up, so I mean it happens. You do want to get a blind going on Beast. And what you really want to avoid is what just happened right there, and, you know, Longshot basically deleting Jubilee. That's not what you want happening. This is kind of showing to me that Mnii is not quite mutant ready, as you're seeing. So we're going to go ahead, count our losses right there, quit out. I don't want to have to res Bishop, even though he just died. So this one, not as successful as far as the, you know, kind of pure damage. To me, what this says is Mnii needs a little bit more work in the mutant section, and that's okay. You know, I came into this kind of knowing that, okay, there is some work that might needs to be done. What I'll end up doing is on the next one, I will basically heal up, I'll double tap the node again, and finish it off. But kind of to look at this node, when you're looking at it, you know, it's important to get a blind on one of the Dad Bros. Once you do have that blind up, you want to get rid of Miss Marvel's taunt. You can do that by using Beast Basic, and then you go in and kind of stun Emma Frost with Jubilee's ultimate, and then you can kind of nuke down the rest of them, because the debuffs will be there, and it's not as much of a problem. So I do apologize that this second node did not go as I would have liked. It does happen, though. Like I said, Mnii's Axemen are not the biggest. With this being push day, I will probably have all of Kale's energy spent. So probably what I'll end up doing is I will do a follow-up to this tomorrow on Kale and just kind of showing off some fully developed Axemen and how they handle the node. But hopefully y'all did still find this video helpful. You know, we can talk more about the second node tomorrow. As always, though, I want to thank y'all so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Hope everyone is having a good week. Stay safe out there, take it easy, and have a good one.